All right, good morning once again. Thank you very much for staying with TV3. This is New Day. Time now to look at what the various newspapers are saying and also what the topical issues are regarding news in the country. My guests are already seated. Let me quickly introduce them, then we'll look at the various front pages. We have Professor Clement Jidonu. He is the president of the AIT, that is Accra Institute of Technology. And then also we have Nana Ajay Bafwewa. He's a legal practitioner. And on my immediate left, we have Dr. Ahmed Jinapo, senior lecturer at the University of Education at Winneba. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start from the Ghanaian Times front page. The Ghanaian Times front page comes with a picture of the Accountant General, and the story there says 2,706 names frozen. AG takes on Joy FM. School feeding caterers on strike, and then also government earns 3 billion cedis from Suba operations. And on the top right corner of the paper, Infantipim headmaster removed. That's one other story we will be looking at. To the back page of the Ghanaian Times, traders protest, pastors making too much noise in markets, and NCCE prioritizes education on polls. That's what the Ghanaian Times is saying. The Daily Guide newspaper, and its front page story is Minister raps Chief Imam over Al-Qaeda foot soldiers. Minister raps Chief Imam over Al-Qaeda foot soldiers. And there's a picture there of Madam Hannah Tete, Foreign Affairs Minister, in a shot with the Sheikh Nuhu Sharbutu, who is the leader of the Muslim society here in Ghana. On the left side, we have Suba engages with MPs, and NPP replies Mahama. That's what the Daily Guide is saying. To the Daily Graphic front page, 225 ex-soldiers sue Chief of Defense Staff over underpayment of gratuities. And then President Mahama was unconvincing, says the NPP. Also on the front page of the Daily Graphic, load management not officially over. That's according to John Jinapo, the Deputy Energy Minister. And then Suba Info Solutions goes international. Back page of the Daily Guide, the Daily Graphic, I beg your pardon. Back page Daily Graphic, Casa Preco to support cardio center with 100,000 cedis annually. That's very commendable. And then also SADA outlined plans to transform Savannah Zone. Okay, the Business Finder. The Business Finder newspaper front page story says, Bank of Ghana in big dilemma, struggles to achieve stability. And then export revenues to drop further. And final paper for this one will be the Today newspaper. It says, PPP takes swipe at Mahama over killer taxes. And then also Suba goes international. Labour holds crunch meeting today with government. And that'll be it for what the Today newspaper is saying. We start with the issues of Guantanamo, which has dominated discussions in the last few days. And we just want to quickly, just refresh your memories regarding the president's decision to accept, or for Ghana's decision to accept 2 ex-detainees of Guantanamo Bay, and the uproar or the brouhaha that has greeted that decision by government. And clearly the president tried to explain or manage an explanation, but people still seem unconvinced about it. We have some Christian bodies saying that they still want the 2 gentlemen to be asked to go back to where they are coming from. And then several questions have been raised. If they are not good enough for the United States to accept them on their soil, why should any other country, and in this case Ghana for that matter, accept them on their soil? Why should we accept them on our soil? So we start with the latest twist to that story, which the Daily Guide is reporting, and it says the minister, that's Madam Hannah Tete, has called on the chief imam, and story is on page 2 of the paper. Just read briefly portions of it, then we can put the entire story in perspective. It says the sometimes it's difficult how the Daily Guide twists and writes its stories, but the core part for me here is that with Christian groups calling for the return of the suspects to be taken back to where they came from, government had turned its attention to Muslim groups, with a high-powered team visiting the over 90-year-old chief imam Sheikh Usman Nuhu Sharbutu at his new Fadama residence in Accra. Madam Hannah Tete, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, who led the delegation, succeeded in wooing Sheikh Sharbutu and his team to accept the 2 Guantanamo Bay detainees linked to Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda terror network. The Foreign Affairs Minister had earlier in a radio interview said the suspected terrorists were only foot soldiers of Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda network. Okay, so that's what the paper is saying, but it actually goes on further to say that she was accompanied by General Joseph Henry Smith, Ghana's ambassador to the U.S., and Melinda Stone, who is in charge of public affairs at the U.S. Embassy here in Accra. Okay, so let's come in studio. I have my fourth guest joining us this morning, and let me quickly introduce him, then we can kick the discussion into gear. We've been joined also by Nana Fredia Ajiman Pambo. He is the Executive Chairman of Invest Pro. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Brian.
Thank you very much. Very well, thank you.
A very happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
Good to see you again.
Exactly. Thank you very much, and we're happy to have you join us. Let's go straight to the discussion. I'll start with you, Dr. Jinapo. First of all, I think this will be the first time you're commenting about this.
I have
you have. Okay. With the latest angle that we're hearing, that the chief imam is accepting, upon the recommendation by the Foreign Affairs Minister, that these people are not a threat and that they should accept them in their mosque or in the community or in Ghana, if you look at it on a larger scale. Does that put to bed the initial fears that people had?
Anyway, I don't know if that's what the story says. Is the story saying that
yes,
chief imam has accepted?
Yes, here it says that Hannah Tete, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, who led the delegation, succeeded in wooing Sheikh Sharbutu and his team to accept the 2 Guantanamo detainees. And then he goes on to say linked to Osama bin Laden.
You know, I think, first of all, I've had the opportunity of expressing my position on this issue before. And if you look at, as you rightly put it, the latest twist, it goes to re-emphasize the fact that government or the president's lieutenants still feel that they need to do some more convincing work. Because for them to go to the chief imam to try as much as possible, as the story says, to woo him to accept these 2 people, is indicative of the fact that based on their own, research or whatever it is, it looks as if there's still some kind of resistance. But I have said that, look, for me as an individual, when I look at this whole story, I quite remember I happened to have seen the pictures of these individuals on TV3. And as a parent, I look at the pictures, I get scared. And I get scared because, number one, no matter what people say as to whether they are terrorists or not terrorists, the fact of the matter is that at a point in time, they were deemed to be dangerous and they were incarcerated. So, as to whether they've reformed or not, it's another thing. And I have said it on this platform that it's a risk that Ghanaians are taking. But at the end of the day, for me as an individual, in whatever relationship that you have with somebody, you tend to know the essence of that relationship when there's a problem. Ghana as a country has a relationship with the United States. If you remember, we've taken so much money from them. I mean, so many things. So, if you are always collecting and you are always the one at the receiving end, it gets to a point that you will have to take certain decisions that may not be comfortable. I would have wished that these people are not here. That is a fact. I mean, in the first place, even the time and energy that is spent discussing this issue is something that I don't see to be productive. We have the Minister of Foreign Affairs visiting the Chief Imam, which as a matter of fact should have been on her decks doing something. But she's trying to convince the Chief Imam. So what is the way forward? The way forward is that some people have called for these people to be repatriated. I sincerely do not think that the president will sit down and say, look, I'm bringing these people to this country to come and indoctrinate the young people of this country into
Is that not the
terrorism.
possibility?
For the president to say, I'm bringing Al-Qaeda members to this country to come and indoctrinate,
No.
it's possible they may, but what I'm trying to say is that the president, and that's why I use the word in all sincerity, the president will not sit down and say, look, let me go and bring these people to come and indoctrinate the good people of this country into terrorism. But as I said, it's a risk that has been taken by the president and the country, and I hope and pray that nothing happens. But at the end of the day, you listen to most people, it looks as if there's unanimity that, look, this move by government is something that is not what is something that people are not happy about, you know. But what can we do about it? Is it possible for them to be repatriated back? I don't know, because in the first place, Martin, you and I do not even know the terms of agreement when it comes to bringing these people in. What are the terms? We don't know. So I think still the debate is ongoing. If it gets to a point that, look, we cannot.
But
yeah.
to the extent that the president says they are within the confines of national security, should that not be reassuring enough that whatever risk or threat we thought they posed would have been minimalized or clearly
You see,
non-existent?
The point is this. As a matter of fact, first of all, these guys were picked up some time back. And from all indications, even though I've heard the US say that they are not terrorists, they are refugees, from all indications, they are terrorists. It depends on how you look at terrorism. There's no doubt about it. But as to whether their agenda was to terrorize a country like Ghana is a different thing. Secondly, as to whether they've reformed is also a different thing. But the most important thing is that, as I always say, we have a relationship with the United States. I can say for a fact that probably in terms of risk, these guys may be more risky to the United States than to us as a country. I hope and pray that our security agencies will be able to contain these two individuals. And most importantly, it's not about our security agencies. I hope and pray that these two guys are more or less have given up on terrorism. If they've given up on terrorism, that will be more reassuring. But, I mean, the buck stops with the president. Okay. The president definitely will have to evaluate the position of Ghanaians. And I can say from the move that is being made by the minister that the presidency knows that, look, people are still not very convinced about this thing. But as to the chief imam, I don't know how the authority of the chief imam works. I don't know if the chief imam, even if did not accept, these people have the mandate to say that these people cannot worship in a mosque. I honestly do not know. But I mean, he's a very powerful person in this country. He's an opinion leader. But my worry is that I hope and pray that it doesn't become a situation whereby Muslims and Christians are being pitched against each other. If you remember, the Christian Council did make a move that they are against it, and now the chief imam is. We have to be very, very careful about that. Yeah.
Prof, should we be worried, or we should just accept them? These are people who need love and affection and attention, and we as Ghanaians can give a lot of it. Our president says that he has a lot, and is hoping that we as a country can extend our love to these people to help them reform.
Okay, I think it's important first, Happy New Year to all your listeners, viewers. I think it's important for us to scope this issue very, very carefully. Guantanamo Bay opened 11 January 2002 with 780 inmates. A number of them were running up in Afghanistan, all over the world, and then shipped there without knowing whether, in the heat of the moment, okay? And then they were locked up. A number of them were investigated. They were found to be hardcore. And then the process started for them to be prosecuted. Some of them were even tried in the US. And a number of them, it was discovered that there are no case against them. I understand one of the guys here was cleared 10 years ago. The difficulty, and when Obama came into power, one of the things he pledged is that he's going to close down Guantanamo Bay. Okay, the hardcores, which were few, because what the U.S. government did was they run out the usual suspects. So they catch a lot of people who were not really serious cases, but they find it difficult to dispose of them, to let them go, because the countries they come from may not be able to accept them. As of now, my reading is that there are about just about 100 of them still in Guantanamo Bay. I'm not quite sure. And close to 56 countries outside the U.S. accepted them for the transfer. Some of them went to their countries. Afghanistan took quite a number of them because some of them came from there. Pakistan took some of them. Saudi Arabia also took some of them. Saudi Arabia actually set up a special camp where the detainees actually are put. I read somewhere that Ghana is the first country in Africa who accepted the transfer, but I also saw somewhere Sudan, okay, and Algeria, and they also accepted people. So Ghana, I may be wrong. Now, these two guys, I want to believe that the president and their team, these presidents, my understanding is one of the security conscious presidents we ever had. He meets with his security chief every now and then. Okay, we are in a terror world, so I'm sure the government put that on their brief. Now, I don't know the circumstances under which this agreement was made with the U.S. And Doc is correct. Sometimes you have to give when you are taking for a long time. They came to an agreement with the U.S. government that we in Ghana will also take 2 of these guys. I don't know the level, whether these guys were the hardcore or just the foot soldiers or just the ordinary guys. I don't know the details. Okay, I don't know the details. But the point is that they are here now, and I want to believe that the president and his team, and this decision was not taken at just the chief of military level. It was taken at the level of the president. I would want to believe that the president and his team actually weigh the security implications of bringing these 2 guys here very carefully. I want to believe that. I also want to believe that the president and his team did this on altruistic humanitarian grounds. For somebody to suggest that the president brought these people here to be a threat to our security, I don't think that would be I think that would be far-fetched. This is quite, you may blame Mahama for a lot of things, but he's a nice guy. He likes to be nice to people. He likes to be kind. Probably that may also have a play here. Okay, so I want to believe that the president and his team brought this guy here.
So you think that reaction?
Well, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. It's quite important for them to understand the circumstances. Now, I also understand some of the points that people are making. Guantanamo. The mention of Guantanamo means that it's a serious place. Only terrorists goes there. But the truth is that some of the people who went there were not actually terrorists. Father and sons were sent there. Relatives were sent there. We are running up. And now we have some hardcore with the U.S. In fact, the U.S. Senate voted that they don't want any of these people repatriated to the U.S. soil. Where the U.S. Pentagon has been going around looking for some parts of the U.S. where they can put the hardcore. Okay? So 56 countries took these people. Ghana took 2. Now, they are here now. I don't think it will be possible for Mahama and his team to turn around the embarrassment that they will face, and we as a country, because this has been publicized all over the world, that Ghana took in 2 Guantanamo Bay detainees. And then we'll turn around tomorrow and go to Kotoka Airport and put on the plane and say, U.S., bye-bye, we are sorry, our people don't like this, we are sending them back. I think the embarrassment for the nation and for the government will be so big that I don't think they will consider it. That is why they are going around to convince people to take it easy. We've got every place connected, and we think that whatever needs to be done to allay your security fear, we'll do.
Shouldn't they have done that before?
I accept. Of course, yeah. You see, sometimes these things are covered under security discussion, so and so. Probably they also fear that if they open this to the airwaves, do we accept? No, government of Ghana is considering accepting 2 guys from Guantanamo. Can we discuss it before we make a decision? Can you imagine what discussion we'll be having? So they went ahead. Never mind. They went ahead and brought these 2 guys. I want to believe that the government will have covered all the security implications of bringing these guys in. I want to believe that. I don't think they brought them here without considering that. Now that they're here, it's also good that people are saying that they are worried about it. So whatever security measures the government have put in place so far, I'm sure, given that the people have now reacted, that we don't like it, I'm sure they are going to do better. They are going to be more vigilant. They will monitor these people very, very well. So for me, we should not another thing too, we should be careful blowing this into Christian and Muslim divide issue, because it's becoming like that. For the foreign minister to go to the chief imam, for the Catholic bishop also declare, I think this is also going to dangerous grounds.
Okay.
I don't really think the government, where we are now, will actually put this place of people on the plane and send them back to where? To Guantanamo. Nobody have been repatriated out of Guantanamo and brought back. Nobody. Out of the 56 countries who took them, or probably take it to another 3rd country, it will be a tough one. So I think that we need to cool it a little bit.
Okay.
Let's get the government to reassure us that they have covered all the security aspect of this. They are going to be here for 2 years. Is that correct? After 2 years, we can tell them bye-bye. But let's not overblow it. That will be the way I'll see it.
Okay. Are you convinced that there really isn't anything to fear?
I've not been here for a while, so I would like to say Happy New Year to your teaming viewers. I think that we seem to be doing too much post-fact to control the damage than what should have actually happened prior to the making of the decision. And so last night I was saying to myself, I'd love to be a fly in the cabinet room where the decision was made to understand what went into the decision making. Because as it stands now, I am still not convinced, as to what went into the decision making. Now, who are these detainees? There are facts about these detainees, not an opinion. Facts from America. For instance, if you look at publications by the the Telegraph newspaper of UK, it says that somebody like Atif has admitted to being involved in, admitted to being a Taliban fighter. Is that correct or incorrect? Now, he said to have fought for Osama bin Laden's, brigade, 55th Brigade. Is that correct or incorrect? Are these facts which, per the American records concerning these people not correct? Has the government of Ghana been informed of any position that we do not know of? If that is the case, perhaps for security reasons, government of Ghana might not want to divulge it to, for public consumption. However be it, if indeed those facts by the American government concerning these individuals are not true, why didn't they go back to their country of origin? This is very fundamental.
Some of the answers given to that question, we have raised it quite severally. One of the answers they gave is that you wouldn't want them to go back into a place where they're overly too familiar with, and a place that could trigger that
It is the reason why government answers are they are not consummate. That answer is the reason why. Because then it presupposes that there is an undercurrent. Hope you appreciate the point. It presupposes that they have certain characteristics per the Americans' own observation And therefore, it's like putting petrol and fire side by side. It will trigger. Therefore, don't send them to that environment. You see, when we are doing these considerations, we seem to be looking at the possible or imminent danger of they themselves causing or being involved in terrorist attacks. But we have not looked at the cancerous effect of possible radicalization. We have not looked at that. The cancerous effect of possible radicalization. Not too long ago, we've seen two Ghanaian youth, a graduate from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, being recruited by ISIS. Right? We've also heard reports of some terrorist grooming camps in Ghana. As to whether or not they are true, we do not know. But these are information. But in the case of the ISIS chap, it's been established that it's true. What it means is that we've got youth in Ghana who are predisposed or potentially can be involved in this. You don't want to expose them to potential radicalization.
That is why these gentlemen are going to be in the confine of the national security.
See, then again it raises this issue. What was the basis, or under what circumstance were they admitted to Ghana? Are they refugees? Are they asylum seekers? Are they residents? We need to understand. You see, all these things raise a lot of questions. Okay. Now, I'm coming. If I don't finish, possibly, are they refugees? Who are they? Now, are we going to control them? Under what orders are we going to control them? Because there's no court order, and these are guys that have never been tried by any court of competent jurisdiction, and therefore, if you say you are restricting them, under what orders? Under what orders? Now, apart from what I've said, there is this issue of accept them to the mosque and so on and so forth. And of course, during the president's interview, he also mentioned the fact that they are here, they want to pick their lives together again. What it means is that there will be surveillance, but they will not be restricted. And so they are going to have access to people, right? The information they share with the people, there might not be direct or conscious effort to radicalize people, but such information has the potential effect of inflaming passions against the United States.
I know these are all questions that a lot of people have thrown about. Some governments and its spokespersons have attempted answers to. Isn't it the fact that we as a people are just being a little too... I mean, our discomfort is letting us ask these questions, and really these are people who may not have any threat whatsoever, or if even they have, really they are not posing any threat as of now, because there is that eye on them to monitor the things and activities they get involved in. So let's rest easy. And I'm not sure government, for that matter, wouldn't have considered all of these before agreeing to...
Mr. Shedu, you see, if you say government wouldn't have considered all these, I do appreciate. I don't think our president is that wicked to import terrorists to come and terrorize us. But we know they are also human. There are things that possibly they may not have considered. For instance, we've just agreed here that they should have gone on a wide-range consultation prior to the decision.
Would you have agreed if they had told you before?
Please, I'm coming.
Okay.
They should have gone on a wide-range consultation. Okay, they didn't. So it shows that there were certain considerations which they did not, and then they have started doing it after the fact. That is factual issues. Now, the issues you raised, my brother, are very speculative. We want to deal with factual matters. What is factual is that, per the US's own record, these are people who've been involved in terrorist activities, one way or the other. So I don't want to deal with speculations. The fact is that they've been involved in terrorism at one point or the other. Is the government of Ghana saying that they are privy to several other documents that shows that the US lied? Is that what they are saying? If that is the case, then they should have been returned to their home country. Why is it that they are not back to their home country? Your answer to me to this question was that potentially there are factors that could incite or creating them the heart of a terrorist. That shows to you that they, per their own observation, there is something there to trigger something. Okay. Now, my last point: we should be careful, like Prof said, not to create animosity between the Christian community and the Muslim community. I hope the foreign minister, after visiting the chief imam, would also engage the Christian council to explain to them, so that this whole...
She actually did that 2 days ago.
Well, then it is good. Then it is good. But, I mean, it looks... And you see, we should be very, if you like, and permit me to use the word smart, in the way and manner we deal with our foreign policy issues. And I'll give you one example. Do you remember the Lockerbie bomber issue? Al-Magrahi. At some point, Britain felt the need, or England, or Britain, they felt the need to deal with Gaddafi again. But they didn't want to incur the wrath of America. So they found a way to deal with Al-Magrahi without incurring the wrath of America. When it comes to foreign policy, it is more of national interest than ally. The biggest ally of America in West Africa is Nigeria. It's their biggest ally. Why didn't Nigeria take them? You see, we should not cry more than the bereaved.
Could it not be because maybe Nigeria's decision not to have accepted, or America's decision not to take them to Nigeria, is because they themselves have their own issues with Boko Haram and all of that?
So must we start our own?
How are we going to start
potential radicalization?
Let me take a point.
Potential radicalization.
Yes. Okay.
I think first of all we need to be very careful not to more or less make the case that this decision being taken, the national interest was not taken into consideration. The president is the commander-in-chief. As a matter of fact, he is seen as the chief executive officer of our security. So if the president took a decision, what we are doing is speculation. If the president took a decision and at the end of the day, something bad happens, the president is going to be held responsible. And I think he understands that. Secondly, I think Nana made mention of ISIS. A couple of students from Tech who went to ISIS. I asked this question that, let's say these guys go to ISIS and we know how ISIS operates. They come back. You understand? We don't have any evidence to the fact that they killed somebody or whatever it is. They come back to Ghana. Will we allow them to enter Ghana because they are now ISIS members? We have no option than to allow them. So I think this issue, in as much as I said, it is a risky endeavor that we've engaged in, we need to be very, very careful not to overblow it. It's a risky endeavor. I would have wished and prayed that, look, the president or whoever is responsible would have engaged these individuals or groups of people who are so influential in this country, the Christian Council, even behind closed doors, to let them understand that this is what is going on before we engage in this. But I strongly do not believe. I think, look, these guys can be dangerous. They are dangerous. But I do not think these two people seriously can cause a problem in this country.
But it is not causing a problem. It's the potential radicalization. Go to a place like London.
No, hold on.
You've had several instances of radicalization.
Thank you, Martin.
Yes,
and good morning again, and happy New Year. I love facts and I like statistics. And first and foremost, let me clarify a very important impression. Ghana is the only country and the first country in Africa that has accepted Guantanamo Bay detainees. The first and only. So that is very important for the record. So Ghana is probably the most intelligent, the smartest, the most knowledgeable country in Africa that deems these two misfits of society who were incarcerated in Guantanamo Bay as acceptable human beings to be hoarded in their country. Now, let's look at the facts, Martin, because assumptions are emotional. The US Senate, in considering the ban not to allow Guantanamo Bay detainees in America, voted 91 against to 3. Now, what is the composition of the US Senate? like the NDC and the NPP parliamentarians. Democrats are 44, Republicans are 54. That means that almost all Democrats who are with the ruling party, so to speak, including all the Republicans, voted against bringing Guantanamo Bay detainees to America. Let's look at the U.S. Congress. The U.S. Congress is composed of 188 Democrats, 246 Republicans, a total of 435. When it came to voting, 370 voted against, 58 voted for, which means that if you extrapolate this, almost 70% of the U.S. Democrats voted against bringing these Guantanamo Bay detainees, against their own president's pledge to close down the Guantanamo Bay by the end of his tenure. What is instructive is, during the debate, what was said by Republican Mike Pompeo and Lynn Jenkins, and they stated that this was before the vote. It will be the state and local officials who will be left to deal with the predictable aftermath that comes with bringing these detainees to our community, such as increased risk of terror attacks, and therefore it is critical that officials and residents have complete understanding of what may be foisted upon them before a final decision is reached. Officials and residents, meaning that if it was Ghana, all MPs and all citizens of Ghana would have needed to have been consulted on the matter before a final decision could have been reached. And during the Senate vote, this is what Senator Tim Scott said: why in the world would you bring these enemy combatants to domestic soil is mind-boggling. This is absolutely nothing short of gambling national security to keep a campaign promise. This is what was said by Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina. Now, when you juxtapose this with what our Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs said, our Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs says that,
and you're looking for the quote
by yes, says that
quote. Okay.
That says that we indicated to them that we would take two. These are the ones that are known and can be managed. There is no need to panic. Our security forces and agencies are capable of handling it. These people are not going to be a threat to the people of Ghana. They asked us for assistance. This assistance is not beyond our capacity to give. It is not putting Ghanaians at risk. It is not going to create a situation where we are attracting hordes of terrorists that these people don't even know into the country. Now, obviously, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs knows something that all Ghanaians and all of Americans, including their Democrats and Republicans, don't know. But the sad part is the abuse of executive power in this particular instance. The gross and consistent abuse of executive power. For example, Martin, IMF does not lend to institutions. It only lends to countries that are members. So IMF, for example, to the Bank of Ghana, because every IMF loan comes with conditionality. It's about sustaining your economy so that you don't come back to them again. When it came to the IMF loan, the government, the executive, in their wisdom, chose not to take it to Parliament because they realized that the conditionalities, if expressed on the floor of Parliament, will be too unpalatable for Ghanaians, and Ghanaians may come up and say, let's just reject this mega $330 million a year for 3 years, totaling $1 billion. Ghanaians are being taken for granted.
So you would have preferred a wider consultation before the decision, which...
I mean, it goes without saying, Martin, that if you are going to bring such people into Ghana, I am sure that the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs has within her powers to do the same research which I have done. And she will have realized the position of America and how they voted against bringing these people, these two people, into America, where their security, their intelligence, their capability to contain these two people are not to denigrate our security services, but monkeys play by size. They are by far of a much higher caliber than Ghanaians can even wish to attain maybe in the next 100 years. And yet in their wisdom, they voted against it. So the issue is, it is not so much as in, speculative or assumptions or trying to pepper the issue now that it has happened. It is the fact that the executive needs to realize, and it's interesting that President Mahama says that we should judge him November 7th. And I hope that, when we start, Martin, the worst part is this chief imam issue. Why must the minister now, there are undertones, there are implicit, and there are also other intrinsic undertones that goes with these kind of moves. Is it an engagement between Muslims and Christians now? What exactly is the message? If there were going to be consultations, these should have happened way before. You don't jump into the river only to think about, wow, I never actually took swimming lessons. This is exactly the situation of government now. If government, in honesty, felt that the decision they had taken was prudent and in the best interest of Ghanaians, they wouldn't need to come back to Ghanaians.
Two quick questions for you, and then I think we can all take a bite at it. Do you think we were arm-twisted into accepting them?
Martin, no. You know something interesting? The Ghanaian government during President Mahama's administration has voted almost 50% against U.S. resolutions in the United Nations. Almost 50%. They have sided with Russia and China against the U.S. So I think, let us not be misinformed about Ghana being an ally of the U.S. Ghana, surprisingly, as much as Ghana depends so much on the United States, has voted against U.S.-led resolutions 50% of the time during President Mahama's administration. So we were not interested. There is a reporter on Fox USA who has said, I wish the executive will sue the lady to prove the source. I wish, for the sake of exonerating themselves, I wish they would take the lady to court for the lady to prove how she got that information. That Ghanaians, there are no free lunches. There are no donor nations. There are no friendly gestures when it comes to America. It's America's interest, not America's friends. America does not have permanent friends. Exactly. It has permanent interest. So if Ghana, for whatever they are looking for, will be the first country and the only country in Africa to accept these detainees without the president consulting the legislature. Sorry, Martin.
On that score, there is this information that has just been sent to me that actually Ghana is not the first in Africa.
Martin.
We've had Algeria, is Morocco? Morocco, yes. Sudan, and quite a number of other African countries.
Please say quite a number. List what you are talking about. Don't leave it like that.
Okay.
In terms of sub-Sahara Africa, Ghana is the first country.
Okay, so now
Sub-Sahara Africa. So if you are going to list your countries, Ghana is the first and only country in Sub-Sahara Africa.
Okay, so we narrowed it down to
Sub-Sahara Africa.
Right.
But the fact of the matter still remains that
Sudan is in the list, isn't it?
I'd have to look through. Yes,
I think Sudan
is Sub-Sahara.
But no, Sudan is not in Sub-Sahara.
Oh, come on.
Sudan is not Sub-Sahara. Sudan is Northern Africa.
Are you sure?
Sudan is Northern Africa.
All right, but we're talking about that.
My second
question, however, would be that
But the fact that Sudan, even if Sudan
is
is in sub-Saharan Africa, does that
Now, it's even
does
worse.
that make it legitimate?
No,
it's even
for the
worse.
executive
It's even worse.
to pursue this part?
No, just a second. Just a second. The question is, I mean, we are not, we don't want to focus the debate on whether or not we are the first to accept them.
Yeah.
That's not the
It's not, it shouldn't
focus
be
of this.
yeah.
How can we as a country contribute to the global fight against terror if this would be our minute contribution to that big
Martin,
fight?
this is not excuse me now. This is not a contribution.
What would you
This is not a
categorize it
contribution.
as?
I mean, if the United States, if this was the United States, the president would be impeached. If this incident happened in the United States, where the president bypassed the Congress and Senate and decided on his own executive powers, why didn't President Mahama decide not to?
But we have, we as a country,
President Obama wanted to close down. President Obama wanted to close down Guantanamo Bay. That was a campaign promise in 2008. He is the most powerful person in the whole world in terms of executive power. In his wisdom, he realized that he couldn't do it without going to Congress and the US Senate. When he did, it was voted down and he signed this into bill. He did not even attempt to veto it, which he could, because had he done that, he realized that Congress and Senate by 2/3 majority can override his veto, and he realized that already the vote was more than 2/3. So there was no point in him trying to even attempt to veto it. That is how democracy, of which Ghana claims to be a part of, works in civilized countries.
And if we collectively agree, I mean, on a global scale, there is that agreement that Guantanamo is a blight on human thinking, as in that is something against human rights, and globally it's been accepted that it is wrong, and so there is that act from the President of America to close it down and then find ways of, taking that blood from our conscience as humans. How else can we
Martin,
help?
I have no issue with Ghana contributing to that. I have no issue whatsoever. But my issue is,
could we
Martin,
have contributed?
The fact that you are in love with a woman and you are going to be able to take very good care of her does not mean that you can catch her, take her into your room and rape her. Liking or loving somebody, there's a process. If you are in love with her, woo her, go through proper channels, marry her, take her to your house legally, and then you can make love to her. But there is a process. And when you bypass that process, the final act becomes illegal.
But Martin, to add a little to what
and that will be a final submission.
Yes.
on
Martin,
this.
I'm saying that, look, by taking or allowing them to come and live here, it's never a contribution to the fight against terrorists. It's never. It's not like, please listen, it's not like we are trying to educate people against undertaking acts of terrorism. It's not like we are supplying military assistance to combating terrorists. This one, we are receiving into your custody people who by facts, or according to the US's own facts, are terrorists. So how is this a fact? Now I'm saying that by US's own facts, these persons are terrorists. You see, people keep on saying that they've not been convicted and so on and so forth. How were they going to be convicted? No court of competent jurisdiction had the power to do so, and therefore they were never tried. Okay. Now, assuming without admitting that these people were not even terrorists, they have lived with terrorists at the Guantanamo Bay for 14 years. Shakespeare says that there's no art to determine the construction of the mind in the face. How are we able to know they have not been radicalized? The torture they went through, the waterboarding torture and so on and so forth. How are we to know that that has not inflamed their passions against the United States, and they are ready to radicalize other people against the United States. This is the risk we face as a nation.
Okay.
Martin, I really think we need to close on
Yes.
this.
The question is,
because I think it's very important for us to move forward. Now, this
the debate.
Yes.
I think it's
The debate
an
needs to
issue
be
of
we shouldn't
national
debate the
concern.
illegality and
No, you don't get me wrong. Don't jump when you're talking. I didn't jump in. I said, as a nation, okay, we can do all the debate. We are doing. Nobody's stopping it. But at the end of the debate, we must decide how do we go to the next step. Okay, we must, or else we can be debating forever. At the end of the day, what do we do from here onwards? Some people are proposing, send them back. Is that possible? Is that doable? Some people are proposing, even if you maintain them here, can you assure us that there will not be a security risk? Even if there's a security risk, can they be contained? Mr. Government, can you assure us that these people, even if they are at risk, you brought them here already, okay, rightly or wrongly, we can debate forever. Now that they're here, and you cannot send them back, and if you say you cannot send them back, can you assure us, Daniel, that you can contain these people so that the risk that we perceive that they have will not come up? So I think that is the issue. You see, this nation must close some issues and move forward.
Are you saying that by the president's action he engaged in an illegality? No, not you, Nana. I mean, Nana Fridia. Is that what you're saying?
Dr. Jinapo,
Yes.
you said, you know how you started your statement?
Yes.
Initially. You said that you are assuming
Yes.
that the president was able to consider all the issues
Sure.
before he made this decision.
Yes.
Now, don't we have the same democracy, or do we have a different democracy from the United States?
The United
I'm asking-
States.
I'm
No,
asking a
we
question.
do. We do.
Now, what I'm saying is that what I'm saying
Yes.
is that just like the IMF loan, just like these Guantanamo Bay detainees, do you think that even just from common sense point of view, without engaging in the legal aspect or the technical aspect of legality, the president decides that he's the commander-in-chief of the army, and therefore all matters in regarding security of Ghanaians are vested in him, and therefore when it comes to the security aspects of Ghana, he needs to take that decision either with his security chiefs together or on his own, without consulting Congress, without consulting the Ghanaian Parliament.
Can I comment on the legality?
I agree. The president takes this decision.
Hold on,
I beg you. The same day, do you know what is interesting? The New York Times said that, meanwhile, look at the statement they made, the prefix. Meanwhile, the Minister of Foreign Affairs brought this to the attention of Ghanaians the same day that this report was released by the State Department. Meanwhile,
can I comment on the legality?
So what I'm saying is that,
Martin, if I comment on the legality,
No, Nana, before you
it
come
is
in.
difficult.
Let
Dr. Jinapo make his point.
Let me make this point. I agree with you entirely, and I've said this, that there needed to have been consultation. They needed to before.
yes.
That said, when you talk of legality, I think Nana will clarify that. Legality here stands for what the Constitution says, and you did not do it. And that, with respect to this particular issue, because I've heard some people, I do not think the president did anything untoward. That said, you made reference to Fox News. And you know how the American media works. You have 3 major TV stations: Fox, MSNBC, and CNN. Fox is aligned towards what? Republicans.
Okay,
And no, let me finish.
I am not I wish the president pursue the Fox News report.
Martin, let me comment on the legality quickly.
Hold on.
The legality quickly. Martin, you see, the legal, whether or not what the president did is unconstitutional depends on the terms under which they were admitted into this country, which is what we don't know as of now. Because you see, if you look at the Constitution, the president draws his power from the Constitution, and therefore he ought to act in tandem or in a manner which is consistent with the Constitution. We don't know the terms of the admission. If they were admitted on the basis of an international treaty or agreement between the United States of America and Ghana, then per Article 185 of the Constitution, same should have been ratified by the Parliament of Ghana. Okay? If they are here as refugees, then would anticipate that the processes leading to the granting of refugee status in this country would have been complied with. That is why I said earlier on that fundamentally these things should be made clear to us. The base, because it's,
do you not agree that because of issues of security, it is not every detail they can put out? It's not every detail that should be in the public.
But Martin, what is security relevant? What is the relevant the security interest? In retrospect to the terms or how their status in
I'm
this
sure
country.
you know it's not every detail of every national decision based, especially those that are based on security, that is made public.
So
no, you know that.
I appreciate that.
Good.
But I'm asking you.
Let's move on.
I'm asking you.
Let's move on to some other subjects this morning. All right. The Ghanaian Times is reporting that school feeding caterers are threatening to embark on strike. And the story there says caterers under the Ghana National School Feeding Program have laid down their tools demanding payment of all arrears owed them. The strike has affected over 5,000 schools whose pupils were benefiting from the program. And speaking to City News, the head of public relations for the program, Alhaji Siba Alpha, acknowledged that the strike had affected the program, but stated that measures were being put in place to pay the caterers. School feeding, just like the National Health Insurance, has had its own back and forth, and there are speculations that it is dying or it is struggling under this administration. From this latest position that we are told the caterers are threatening to take up some kind of an industrial action, I don't know. Do you think that the government could have acted earlier, Prof? I think I'll start with you, since it falls in line with issues regarding school and education for that matter.
Well, it's more to do with budget, money. The government is having difficulty paying for these things. And hence, some of the contractors, because these people basically are contractors, they say they are not paid. And government said, well, we are doing everything possible to pay you. I think it's the question of the money issue. You back on some of these social activities. The National Health Insurance, one of them, is struggling. This one is also struggling. Government is facing a lot of problems meeting its expenditure commitment. So for me, there are no bigger issue than the issue that it's a money issue. Probably I won't say that it's a mismanagement issue. The question, if the money is there, why are they not paid? Okay? So for me, there are no big issues behind this story, but you said that it's just money issue.
Money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Martin, these people haven't been paid since the end of the second quarter of 2015. They haven't been paid for the past 6 months. And if you look at what this school feeding is supposed to achieve,
I think Nana should have come in before.
I don't know whether-
No, we're actually going. So let me hold your thought there, and then
Just allow me to let me finish. When he finishes, then I come in.
It's down to society.
all right, go on.
It's already started.
if you look at the school feeding program, you will attest to the fact that this is perhaps one of the most laudable achievements in our democracy. And this whole school feeding program has become so politicized that it now has taken on a different dimension. You need to be affiliated with certain parties, you need to be affiliated with certain families before you become a caterer. So as tragic as it is that some of these caterers haven't been paid for the past 6 months, it is also a case of the chicken coming home to roost. Because sometimes when we throw stones to the wall, what we don't realize is that eventually they jump right back at us. But this is not just school feeding alone. I think this is endemic of a wider issue within our governance system, where we always need to react after the fact. Government is always catching up after the fact. And I don't think you should be running the country whereby everything is post-action. Government ought to have mechanisms in place to even be proactive enough to anticipate and ensure that certain things that have the capability of undermining our democracy does not allow itself to emerge.
Okay.
Whether it's school feeding, whether it's nurses training, whether it's posting of nurses, whether it's doctors' allowances, I think let us try as much as possible in terms of managing the system to realize that when people work, especially contractors, some of whom have lost their houses, some of whom have lost major assets since they pledged them as collateral for loans,
Okay.
have lost their entire wealth because of government's broken promises to pay them not just on
But government
time.
has also given the assurance that
6 months thereafter, the last time
there were challenges.
The last time they
and
were
that
paid was June 2015. That was the last time. And these assurances, whenever these things happen, Martin, one of the things that we should try and do, Martin, and it's very important that we do that when we have this position to sit on this platform, is that certain things, it's not about government or NPP or NDC. What stinks, stinks. If it was the NPP, if it was the CPP, if it was the PPP, I'll be maintaining this same position. What is wrong is definitely wrong. It is not about anybody having anything against NDC or the president government. President Mahama is one of the nicest human beings I've come across in my life. And this is not about bashing the NDC, but it's about stating the obvious. You don't allow people to work, use their own money to pre-finance this cooking. My sister is a victim of this.
Okay.
So just to give you an example, Martin.
No. We need to go on to this other subject. So let the other panelists have their take.
Martin, just like he said, we are all suffering as a nation from, partisanship. Or we seem to be taking positions because we belong to NDC. There is nothing like the Ghanaian interest anymore when it comes to consideration of issues.
That's right.
And it is hurting us. Look, President Rawlings was in power for 19 years. Now he walks on the street. You understand what I'm saying? He's no more in power. So if you patronize them and he left and didn't do what he was supposed to have done as a president, he's not suffering. You and I are suffering. President Kufuor was in power for 8 years. Now he's retired in his home, walking on the street like President Rawlings. So if you patronize them, it is not President Kufuor who is suffering. Now, if we patronized President Mahama, he will also go on retirement. Give or take, if President Mahama should even win the next elections, 4 years he'll be out of power. And when he's out of power, Martin, you'll still be here. And so when it comes to the discussion of national issues, I think the problem is, and in fact, that was why when we're discussing the Guantanamo issue, I said, I don't know what went into the decision making. Because if you look at America, like we all agreed, there's a common national interest that defines them. If you look at Britain, it's a common national interest that defines them.
They also have their clear lines of
eventually they meet as a common interest.
To the extent that even the U.S. president in his State of the Union address mentioned quite categorically, you could tell that it was a very
emotional
about the fact that they have been polarized over the years between Democrats and Republicans, and the fact that it is hurting them. But like you're saying, there is that common thing that holds them together as a country.
Now, this issue of school feeding, let's face it, first and foremost, the funding was started by the Dutch government. What was the plan? Did we anticipate the Dutch government at one point saying that we are not going to fund it anymore? It was a possibility. What was the game plan in terms of going forward? I don't think there was anything like that. Now we are caught up by a situation where the government of Ghana would have to fund this with the taxpayers' money. First and foremost, we need to do an evaluation as to the effect or the impact it's making on the promotion of education vis-a-vis the national economy. Yes, it's a good social intervention, but going forward, what is the evaluation we are doing? Because if government would have to continue, then just like the National Health Insurance Authority would have to find a way to fund it. Now, we shouldn't hurt the caterers, because we shouldn't forget some of them take loans to fund these. Now, even if you pay them 8 months down the line, okay, their purchasing power would have reduced. We know that in the last 1 year, the prices of goods and services, have escalated, and therefore, even if you pay them what they were supposed to get about a year ago, they might not
be able to
the value, okay. Time value of money. Okay, now it is not limited to the school feeding alone. Even local contractors, okay, a lot of them are complaining.
And if you can wrap it up so he can.
So what I'm saying is that, in effect, we need to look at such programs and ascertain going forward its value vis-a-vis impact on society and national economy, and look at ways of getting stable funding for it.
Okay, all right. Okay, Jennifer.
I think Lawyer Nana has more or less taken a bit out of Mama, because in the first place, Matt, do you know that this school feeding program, initially the caterers were paid 50 pesos for a person per day.
Child.
Today is 1 cedi. So you ask yourself, what can 1 cedi do in terms of feeding a child today in this country? The reality on the ground is that the program is a laudable idea. I mean, there's no doubt. I'm doing a study on the efficacy of school feeding on early child education. Because if you look at early child education, we are not looking at just the cognitive development, but the physical development. At the end of the day, the reality on the ground is that how much I spend on my child a day in terms of a feeding, or everybody here, is definitely 10 times more than what is being paid to these kids. So is it everybody who needs it? Let's look at the impact. There's no doubt that it's a good idea. Let's look at the impact. The reality on the ground, if you look at what is going on, it looks as if government is struggling to be able to raise money to pay. And that is where I agree with Prof. So how do we go around it to try as much as possible? Because not too long ago, recently, the PRO, Siba, who happens to be my classmate at secondary school, he made mention to the fact that these caterers have been paid. They've been giving some money, if you remember. Not too long, and today they are on strike. So I think we need to sit down and look at it. It shouldn't be just I mean, it's a social intervention program, there's no doubt, but let's look at how it can be made efficient, how it can help in propelling education. And the fact of the matter is that, look, there are kids who do not get food to eat apart from this program. Exactly. I remember when I was a people teacher, we used to have CRS, Catholic Relief Services, CRS. They used to give us sugum and what do they call it, oil. And when they prepared the food for these kids in the community like Fufusu, if the food is prepared, you see the number of children who come to school. If it is not, you see the number of children who come. And sometimes, Martin, these kids come to take the food, they eat some, and they take some home for their parents to eat. Poverty is real. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think we need to see how we can work around this thing.
All right. Unfortunately, I think Guantanamo took a lot of our time. And
Dr. Nabo is hoping on. It's praying and hoping.
Right. So I'd want to say a big thank you to my guest who joined us this morning to discuss the topical issues in the country today, Professor Clement Dijonu, President of AIT, and then also we had Nana Ajay-Bafo, a legal practitioner.
It's a self-rusticated.
And then also Nana Fredria Ajiman Pambo, he is the executive chairman of InvestPro Limited, and Dr. Ahmed Jinapal, senior lecturer at the University of Education, Winneba. We will cross over to Studio A, where we have business coming up. But even before we go then, one other issue that the Ghanaian Times has reported, I thought was necessary to be touched on. It says some 2,706 names on government payroll have been suspended, and it goes to buttress the point that the president made, that there are efforts to fight corruption to reduce these. And there are those who have already commended and said that
How were they removed? Was it because they used fake certificates, or what is it?
So, according to the story, it says that their salaries have been suspended, and these are normally persons who are around the Ashanti region. Those affected are staff of the Ghana Education Service, Ghana Health Service, Office of the Head of Civil Service, Ghana Statistical Service, Ghana Prison Service, Ghana National.
Martin, this is all Ashanti region.
According to the story,
According to
the
the story.
2,700.
Is it the same place where the
200,000?
Let me read.
200,000.
According to the document from the Accountant General's Department, which was cited by the Ghanaian Times,
Looks
the
like
action was precipitated by the audit report, which indicated that the affected staff could not be located at the institutions where they were supposed to be working during the audit exercise.
in the Ashanti region.
Yes, in
Very
the
interesting.
But it's suspended and I think pending investigation.
Pending
So I mean, if it so happens that they come to my school to do an audit and
you are
probably
not
on that
there.
day I'm not there. So I think, but the reality on the ground is that look, even at the university now, we have people coming with fake certificates because of technology. It's easy for people to, manufacture these things easily. So I think we need to be on the
you see,
watch out.
I think that we are not pragmatic in solving problems.
Sure.
We allow them to overwhelm us, and the solutions are knee-jerk. So as and when they arise, we try to fight it, and we don't even fight it holistically, and so they come back to bite us. Okay, now for instance, 31st December, we had a lot of prophecies, fire, flood. These are perennial problems. In as much as some of us believe in prophecies, it's not too difficult to now prophesy over Ghana's problems, because you know that they will happen. There will be fire burn in Kumasi Market, fire burn in Makola. You see, we don't solve problems.
They happen, but
We don't solve problems. This payroll issue, ghost names, they've been with us since when? For a long time. Look, I remember very well in 2001. The moment MPP assumed power, they said we're going to remove ghost names from our payroll, right? In 2000,
is it something you can do away with and say you brought finality?
why shouldn't we? In the era of technology, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Government hires, government employs. Tell me, doesn't TV3 know all its employees? Why can't government know its all employees? Those who are dead and those who are alive, those who have left. Why is it difficult? Why should it be that at a place like National Service Secretariat, because of payroll, somebody steals over 9-something million or how much? Million cedis. You understand? I think we are not pragmatic. It's not about, that's why I said, look, what is the national interest? Okay, it is easier for government to impose taxes on Ghanaians, but it is not easier for government to recover monies that are stolen from Ghanaians. Why? What is the interest of the state? Is the interest of the state to fight for the interest of the state or inflict the citizens? Increasingly, it is not just limited to this government. Increasingly, that is the sense that we are getting. Okay, why must somebody, a company like Smartins, right? Smarties, okay, money finds its way to Smarties, and you say that you say that you are giving them an opportunity to refund their money. It's becoming a trend. Meanwhile, when you have to tax the Ghanaian quickly, you go under a certificate of emergency to tax the Ghanaian.
I think that this was just to get us talking, but I realized the interest in it, and certainly the debate about it would also be on for the next few days.